All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gents. Welcome back. We have quite a bit to get into tonight, so I do want to go ahead and get things started. Let me go ahead and show you what we are going to discuss tonight. We have two guests tonight, so let me go ahead and show you that thumbnail, ladies and gents. And we will do call in tonight after the segment. So tonight, we have big news happening in Iran. Larry Johnson is going to be joining us, ladies and gents. Apparently, there is a claim, and Larry will come on to explain this, that Iran will be testing nuclear weapons. So he's going to come on and explain all of that. Plus, there is also fire taking place right now in Kuwait. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Jared Kushner is under investigation. Under investigation right now. Him and Ivanka are currently dealing with some serious issues as they try to take more land. We'll get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Joy Reid is in the hot seat right now, ladies and gentlemen. She has changed her tune on one particular issue, and people are calling it out because she has not apologized for going after some members, some people, for the very thing that she is claiming to support now. So we're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Sam Altman has been seen locking arms apparently with Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan for a new data center that apparently the people are very much against. What does that mean for you? I'm going to tell you how they are cracking down on people who are protesting against these data centers. And if you live in Michigan, you definitely want to pay attention to that story. Well, actually, everybody should be paying attention to what's happening with the data centers as well. Last but not least, we are going to discuss, and I've been waiting to talk about this story, the Mafia unions. That there is a picture of Michael Franzese. He was a part of the Colombo family, if I remember correctly, and he was probably the first person that I saw talk about these Mafia unions. So we're going to get into all of that tonight, ladies and gents. So I don't want to keep our first guest waiting. So let's go ahead and introduce him. Our first guest is the author of the cult classic novel, The Unreals, and the bestsellers, Hidden History and Survival of the Richest, to name a few. He is also a researcher. I've been waiting to talk to him for quite a bit. Let's go ahead and bring in Donald Jeffries. Donald, how are you?
It's great to be here, Sabby. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Donald, you may need to just adjust your volume a little bit if you can. Just your mic volume. It's just a little low.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have been waiting to cover this story about how the Mafia infiltrated the unions. And I want to start off with this video clip here. For those who are not aware, this gentleman's name is Michael Franzese. I believe he also has a YouTube channel where he has talked about this as well. So let me go ahead and bring this in here. This is what one of the things that Michael Franzese said about how the Mafia was working with the unions. Listen to this.
Involved in the unions during your heyday?
Yes.
Explain how you were involved.
Well, I had control of a local that had bartenders and waitresses. I also had the security guards union. Security guard union that we had, I don't know if you know this, but we had people stationed at some nuclear power plants, 9 of them altogether. And the law at that time, I don't know if it's changed, is that when a nuclear power plant closes down, you have to have security around it for 100 years. 100 years, even though it's closed down. And so the mob was protecting the nuclear power plants that we had because we control the unions.
That's where I wanted to stop there. Donald, I want to go ahead and bring you in here. So he admits there that the Mafia was controlling the unions. I want to get your take on this.
Yeah, well, that's, unfortunately, when unions were started, it looked like a boon for the working man. They had lots of battles in the early days with Henry Ford and some of the other capitalists trying to crack down on unions. And they were necessary evil, not evil, but they were necessary, obviously, because labor had, was giving so much to capital, and capital's taking advantage of it. They still are, obviously. But, during my lifetime, unions thrived pretty much. And there were obviously some that were controlled by the mafia. And, John F. Kennedy, one of my heroes, one of his first bursts into prominence on the public scene, him and RFK, his brother, they chaired the McClellan Committee hearings that looked back in the 1950s. It looked into corruption between the mob and unions. That's where he first ran afoul of Jimmy Hoffa and people like that. And I think that's where he first met Sam Giancana, too, the mobster. So everybody knew that there were these connections. But the problem is it worth it? Because again, during my working life, I can tell you when unions were thriving, and they, whether they all were controlled by the mob, I don't know, wages were much higher, benefits were better. And I'm talking about jobs that weren't unions. I never worked a union job, but my pay was always better and the benefits were better because they had to compete with the unions. So, yeah, I mean, I had somebody that my brother-in-law worked, had to go out on strike and they called people scabs that came in, that kind of stuff. And they could rough you up, and that kind of thing. And so it's unfortunate because there's been a battle between capital and labor for as long as we can remember. And the unions were the only thing, they were is a necessary evil, you might call them.
So let me ask you this question. How do you believe the mafia was able to infiltrate the unions? And for those who are not aware, they also worked with the Teamsters, which is probably one of the biggest unions in the United States right now. So the Teamsters go way back.
Yeah, that's why it was Jimmy Hoffa. And well, I think what happened was, I'm a big conspiracy guy. People read my books and they know people say, you think everything's a conspiracy. Well, yes, I do, because I think we're being ruled by conspirators. So this is how they do business. So I think once the idea of unions were formed, and the early labor leaders, and they killed a couple of them. In my book, Survival of the Richest, I talk about they hung one guy, they just hanged him to make an example of him. He never gets talked about anymore. I've forgotten his name. You have to read my book to find out what it was, but this was something that was necessary, and the establishment fills that void. You can look at it like we see today, where rioters and on both sides will be infiltrated by Gestapo agents, and that's they want to control the process. So they obviously wanted to control labor because they did get a little bit more in return, but they couldn't go out of line. And obviously, it was easy for conservatives to criticize labor unions, because they were obviously controlled by the mob. And you have many, many stories in cities, especially, where they would come around and, they were that guy that was talking. I mean, he kind of has a mafia vibe to me. And, that's what it was. There's a little kind of not much of a blur between the mafia and union leaders. And they were on, I knew a guy that was in the unions for a long time. And they all knew that the unions were in bed with capital. And they weren't necessarily looking out for the interest of the workers, but I think they saw a void, and they filled it because they wanted to control it. Because if unions really worked as they're supposed to, and people came together, and there was no mob to kind of rough people up or whatever, we'd all be making a lot more money.
And the reason why I wanted people to hear this is because oftentimes we hear about how powerful the unions were back in the day, like before I was born, and people often ask, well, where's that power with the unions now? It seems like a lot of times they are either bending to the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, but they don't seem to be as powerful as they were before. And I think it is important for people to understand that I think part of the reason they were more powerful is because they had that protection from the mafia.
I think so. But I think again, that I look to the Reagan years, especially the air traffic controller strike. I think you can look, that's the point that unions began to die. Up until that point, and you're not old enough to remember it, but the Democratic Party especially, they were betrothed to big labor. You had a guy like George Meany and the AFL-CIO, and they were all in this Council of Foreign Relations. They were all in the same organizations, but they made a production out of getting big labor's endorsement. I don't know where big labor is now. I haven't seen a Democrat get the endorsement of big labor forever, but it used to matter. But of course, immigration is there too, because the old big labor would have objected to cheap labor coming in and lowering everyone's wages, and H-1B visa workers and all that stuff. So, I think that it's unfortunately overall, once Reagan broke the air traffic controllers, and a lot of people applauded him, unfortunately, because they thought that needed to be done. But what happened? Not only them, but lots of other jobs do not pay what they paid. Maybe look like something the post office. The post office they used to pay really, really well. I knew people that were in there were making executive salaries, and not now. Not now. It's completely different.
So you feel like the unions basically went bust under Ronald Reagan?
I think so. I think you can basically track it to that air traffic controller's fight, especially because the public was largely with Reagan. He was popular. It was early in his presidency, and they cheered him on. There weren't too many people that argued. And the Democrats, as always, this two-party system, the Democrats were ineffectual, and then that may have been the last time. I don't know what happened to big labor after that. It might have disappeared then. I think during the 90s with Bill Clinton, he certainly was not a labor guy. I don't think they were fighting for Democrats' endorsements then. So it's unfortunate because again, as somebody who lived through it and was never a union member, I can tell you that they did keep all wages up. They were, of course, they took dues, which everybody, criticized. And that's true. I mean, nobody wants to have to pay dues, but it's a payoff. If you're making that much more money, I think most people would pay dues. Now, you don't want to have a mafia guy strong arm you. So you have to worry about that too. That's something you don't want.
Well, you brought up dues, and I want to bring this in because there was another guy, also former mob, and he mentions what they use the dues for. This is interesting. Check this out.
The main way is the dues, the union dues. So everybody pays union dues, right? The union dues are invested like a 401k, whatever
pension.
Right. They're invested. So what they do is, so now the union collects all the union dues, and the mob goes to them. Okay, listen, we're going to build a hotel up on Sunset Strip, whatever. And they use the union dues for the hotel, but who owns the hotel? The mob owns the hotel.
Right.
But it's paid for with the union dues.
Which that's what Jimmy Hoffa was doing with the Teamsters pension, building casinos
in Vegas for the mob.
Right.
Exactly. And that's what it is. The pension fund, the union dues. The union dues all go into the pension fund. It's all part of the union dues.
So I thought that was really interesting. Explains how they were able to even pay for like some of those hotels.
I mean, he mentioned Jimmy Hoffa, and he's the most notable example I know that dipped into the Teamsters pension funds. And yeah, they had substantial pension funds, and and that's the fear we have even today. You hear conspiracy people saying, well, they're going to take whatever, but the problem is most of us don't have pensions anymore. The pensions were eliminated. People don't realize I've got the stats in Survival of the Richest, but it used to be a majority of people had a private pension up until a certain point. Now, very few do. And it's ironic that most of us who have nothing but Social Security when we retire pay the sometimes lucrative pensions of not only congressmen, but retired fire chiefs, retired police chiefs, that some of them are six figures. And there's a lot of them out there. People, again, I wrote about that in the book. And so it's one of my pet peeves. That's why, I'm Huey Long is still my political hero. And I talk about him all the time. And, I want to share the wealth. So that everything I do kind of comes back to that.
You wrote a book called Survival of the Richest. And, I know you've gone into like the JFK stuff as well. And I think it's really interesting. Like a lot of times, those of us who are not rich, we look back and we're like, how were they able to do what they did? Right. And I think a lot of this goes back to power and control and resources. And it seems like to me, one of the things that keeps rich people rich and keeps the poor is that a lot of times it seems like when we do organize, whether it's unions or protests, there's always infiltration. And I think a lot of us try to figure out, how are people even infiltrating these groups? How are they infiltrating these unions? How are they infiltrating these organizations? And who is putting them up to it? I want to get your take on that.
Well, how did they, my book, Hidden History, I talked about how they infiltrated the far left and far right-wing groups. They infiltrated the Black Panthers and the Ku Klux Klan. And I talked about, most people don't know that when Malcolm X was shot, the guy who was his supposed bodyguard was a government agent. Same thing with Fred Hampton, the Black Panther leader. And one of the people that shot a civil rights worker, Viola Luiso, was a Ku Klux Klan member that was a government agent riding with KKK people. And then you have Martin Luther King, who people seeing that iconic photo of his head being cradled. That guy's a CIA agent. So they infiltrate all this stuff, especially extremist movements. because they're terrified of anyone from the left or the right jeopardizing them. So they control it. That's why you see, look at any of the riots, the 2020 riots, the first guy, everybody knows the first guy who broke a window was a police officer. Everybody knew it. They even identified him. Never heard another word about him. And what happens is people are followers. So all you need to do is have a couple people stoke it, throw the first Molotov cocktail, and then they'll get swept up in the emotion. So it's the same kind of thing, certainly because they don't want to share the wealth. So they're obviously going to infiltrate these unions because they're going to try to hold down salaries. Now, for a long time, they let people make pretty decent livings. Now, of course, the presence of the Mafia was there, and if you got out of line, maybe they might break your legs. So that's scary. But they're not there now. And I can only think of you have sports, professional sports still have pretty good unions. You have teachers that have pretty good unions. I don't know any other effective unions that are out there.
I don't either. And some can argue that there's a different mafia now, and that's the political parties, where the Teamsters is asked for an endorsement by the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, like every presidential election. And so it just seems as though now those unions have basically capitulated to the political mafia and not so much like the criminal mafia. You know what I mean? Although we can say the political mafia is criminal too.
Oh yeah, they are. And people, I don't know what mafia the old fashioned mafia exists still today. I mean, those guys you played clips of sound like it to me, but we all hear a New York accent and it just sounds tough, and we're imagining, there must be a mobster. I don't know if there are, made guys or whatever, that kind of good fellas. I don't know if they exist anymore, but you're right. They've seeped into government so that we basically have mobsters running us. So you have, look at the Bush crime family, the Clinton crime family. They have their crime families basically, and they have decades worth of it. And so they will knock off the people. They all have body counts too. In my book, Hidden History, I tabulated the body counts for these people, and it's astonishing. So the mafia had nothing on these people.
Yeah, I think Eric brings up a really good point here. He said the bosses are the billionaires. And this is another thing. When we talk about like the rich, they don't just become rich. They seem to manage to stay rich. Like we don't hear every day that a billionaire just lost all their money. And that brings me back to the unions, because people have unions because why? Because they want a decent wage and because they want decent benefits. They don't want to be exploited. They don't want to be taken advantage of. And in order to become a billionaire, it's like you need that exploitation. You need people to take advantage of. And so it just seems like to me, like I've noticed it as well. I don't know anybody that has a job today that has a pension. I don't know one person, none of my friends. I'm like, pension, what is that?
And they're eliminated, considering they want to get rid of Social Security too. I don't know what they think people are going to do when they retire. But again, these are questions, and in my book, Survival of the Richest, I ask the question over and over again. It's always the people that have to sacrifice. The people that have something never sacrifice. And the statistics are just astonishing. The bottom 50% of America, half this country, has less than 1% of the collective wealth. And that's what, 175 million people or something, with less than 1%. They have nothing. So they're invisible. Their interests are not even, they're just trying to survive. And 70-some% of people live paycheck to paycheck, and about the same percentage have less than $500 in the bank. They have no savings. And no one is addressing this. And my old party was the Democratic Party. And they used to kind of address it. They used to call themselves the party of the working man. And they don't do that anymore. They're too busy with transgender rights. That's what they waste all their time on now. They might care about transgender workers, but they don't care about anybody else. And the idea is that, when these billionaires are unconscionable. And the people that are the 1%. And I give tons of examples in the book where, there's a guy that's an executive. I think he's making $700 and some thousand a month in retirement from his pension that he worked out. That's just unbelievable. Most people don't make $700,000 in their working lifetime. And I've done the stats where I'll talk about when some athlete signs a big contract or something, and I'll say, of course the fans will get all excited. So it would take you like 2 centuries of working full time to equal what that guy just made in the contract. 2 centuries. And that people don't realize the disparity of wealth. And I harp on it. And, what I found that's most sad is that when you talk to people, most people who would benefit from it, really, I get blowback for them. They get antagonistic because they wow, I've worked hard for what I have. Well, you don't have anything. What do you mean you worked hard for what you had? You've been screwed over like everybody else. But they like to think they have something and they want to keep it. And I told them, look, I couldn't, Huey Long, nobody could devise a redistribution of wealth where you would have to give up anything. You're going to get something under any kind of redistribution of wealth program. You're talking about the absolute top percentage. And another figure, when I wrote updated version, the paperback version of Naomi Wolf wrote the foreword back when she and I were friends. And I think Zionism has come between us now. But I did some some calculating and found that if you divided up all the money in the United States, and this is known money, this is not the foundations, which have never been audited, obviously the Federal Reserve, none of the offshore profits, which we don't know how much is even there, the known money, and you divide it up between every man, woman, and child, it will come to $344,000 for every man, woman, and child. Now, I'm not suggesting we do that, but that shows you how much wealth is there.
That's crazy when you think about it. I would say, when it comes to the Democratic Party, I would say they don't really care about those groups. They don't care about the LGBTQ people either. They really don't. That's just a front. They care about their donors, the donor class. They care about the military industrial complex. They care about Wall Street. That's been at least my experience. That's what I've seen with them. And I think that if we go back to the 80s, let's say Ronald Reagan doesn't win. Let's say, this is really imagining here, but let's say that Jimmy Carter wins that re-election. Do you think the unions would then kind of die out if Jimmy Carter had won re-election?
Well, I voted for Carter. It was the first chance I had to vote, and I was still a good Democrat then. I was a far left-wing radical, card-carrying member of the ACLU back when they used to care about civil liberties. He was a disappointment, although he looks better in comparison to what came after him. But he may have slowed it down, but I think, again, that these politicians, whether it's him or Trump or any of them, I think they have people behind the scenes, and these are the people that pressure them. And they're pretty much the last president to think he was in charge was JFK. And we saw what happened to him. And I keep coming back to JFK because I think you can make an argument that on November 22nd, 1963, the day of his assassination, America was at its absolute zenith, at its peak in terms of economically, culturally, eyes of the world, and everything. And ever since then, it's been straight down. And I like to think of what would have happened if he hadn't been assassinated. I don't know if we would have had the counterculture. I don't know if we would have had drugs and free love and all that. All came out of the anti-war movement. He was going to end the war. So that really changed history. I have no idea what history would have been like, but it would have been really different.
If JFK lives, maybe we would have had at least a better future for the working class.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't have to worry about Israel because, I've been studying this for so many decades, but more and more now I'm becoming convinced. I'm finding out new information about Israel. I just found out the other day that the IDF was in Dallas, in Dealey Plaza until 6 hours before his assassination. Why? And we know JFK, JFK was involved in a huge battle with David Ben-Gurion to stop them from developing nuclear weapons. He had threatened to cut off all aid. And RFK, as Attorney General, had tried 7 times to get AIPAC to register as a foreign agent, which Thomas Massie just tried to do too. So
right.
They were the only administration to ever go up against Israel. And what happened to him?
I knew that he was pushing back on them having a nuclear weapon. I did not know the IDF was in Dallas, Texas.
I just found it out myself too. And that's just, I don't know what that means. And of course, there's still so much, evidence that elements of the CIA and the military industrial complex, the Pentagon, were involved as well. But Israel definitely had, involvement. And you could argue that they benefited as much as anybody. Certainly the Pentagon benefited with the Vietnam War, but Israel benefited from having carte blanche to do what it wanted after. Lyndon Johnson didn't even do anything to them when they attacked the Liberty in 1967. So, JFK was the last one to try to rein them in because he recognized, and he had a history of that. His father had battled that for a long, battled Zionism.
And then RFK was killed.
Yeah, RFK was killed. So, I've always said RFK would not have been killed if JFK wouldn't. Probably Martin Luther King wouldn't have either. I don't know about Malcolm X maybe, but I don't think any of those assassinations would have happened. And I was the first one to look into JFK Jr.'s death. I think he was assassinated as well. And people can read about it in a couple of my books, but I don't think any of those people would have died because it's all because they knocked off JFK. And that's why we're still so concerned. They're still so concerned about keeping the secrets of that. They can't possibly let it go because there's too many dominoes that would fall if they did.
Do you think that's why some people are afraid to fight back today? Like, even like union, like I know like when I worked at the university, like union it seemed like it was a dirty word. Like if you even mention this to people, they're like, don't you start thinking about trying to get people to organize. Like people freak out.
Yeah, well, they did it. We're familiar with liberal propaganda, and the right talks about that. And there is lots of liberal propaganda, but you have conservative propaganda going back to Reagan. They're the ones that demonize the word liberal. I was a classical liberal, so they made it so everybody's ashamed to say they were liberal. And certainly unions, after Reagan demolished the air traffic controllers union, yeah, everybody did look at that. So we end up with right to work states like mine, where they can fire you for any reason. But you don't have to join a union. Not that there are any unions left to join, but yeah, I think that was Reagan had a huge impact in many ways, and it gets me that the right continues to worship him and misrepresent his record.
Yeah, I think maybe people have forgotten because Trump's in office. So maybe they're like, oh, well, maybe Reagan wasn't that bad. But
Yes,
I've heard stories about economically, like that whole trickle down, like economics did not work in the end. And I think that's part of the reason why we ended up in the position that we're in currently, to be honest.
Okay. And Huey Long described the trickle down economics, 30 years, 50 years before Reagan, before they killed him too. He was assassinated as well. And it's just the idea that you continue to give. That's the whole idea, is that you give more to the people who have it already, and it'll trickle down to the masses. And obviously it doesn't, and it hasn't. If you look at in the 1950s and into the 1960s, every job paid a living wage. And obviously now it's hard to get a job. You have the top 20%, I call it the managerial class. They're doing well. But they have to be on their P's and Q's. If they tick somebody off, then they can drop down. And you don't want to drop into that bottom half that has less than 1% of the collective wealth. And most people don't understand the extent of that forgotten America. Half of America, they don't show them, they don't interview them. They have no power whatsoever, but they are struggling. I know so many people like that. I seem to attract people like that read my work. So I haven't gotten one billionaire reader yet.
Wow. Well, Larry, you'll not Larry, excuse me, Don. Larry's in the background. Don, you'll have to come back. We'll have to talk more about the JFK stuff. We'll have to do like a separate show about that as well. But before you go, where can people follow your work?
Well, Substack is the only place I'm not being shadowed in. Donald Jeffries at substack.com. It's I protest, because I'm always protesting. And I am back at Twitter. I was gone for a while, and somehow it was a Mother's Day miracle, and I'm back. So that's at Don Jeffries on Twitter. Those are the two best places.
Awesome. Don, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All righty. All right, ladies and gents, that was Donald Jeffries. Follow his work. Again, like I said, he's written a lot about how the rich get rich, and he's done a lot of research. So hopefully I'll bring him back on and we can talk more about the JFK stuff, because we can do a deep dive into that. Our next guest is here. Let me go ahead and bring him in. You guys may be familiar with him. His name is Larry Johnson. He is a former CIA analyst. And Larry.
Hey there.
Larry, you opened Pandora's box. How are you?
Good. I'm in full Florida mode. Like after 6 o'clock, if I'm doing any interviews, I'm out on my lanai. I get my cigar, and just enjoy fresh air.
I hear you. Well, speaking of some fresh air, because I saw, so for those who don't understand what's going on, getting into this update about Iran, I saw that you were on Judge Napolitano's show the other day, and you dropped a bombshell about what is next for Iran. So if we can walk everyone through that timeline, if we can go back to what happened on Friday with Marco Rubio, and we can bring people up to speed to what's going on now.
Yeah, actually, I think it was on Thursday that it happened with Marco. I may have said Friday, but as I've gone back and got the timeline now properly reconstructed. So somewhere, I'm not sure of the time on Wednesday or the time on Thursday. And so this information that I'm sharing comes from a source in Pakistan that has access to the information and that's knowledgeable. So Pepe Escobar and I both haven't, we've worked together on this. So let me run you through the actual sequence of events. The National Security Council of Iran met. They were reacting to the U.S. attacks on Iranian ships, the bombings that took place on Bandar, near the port of Bandar Abbas, the attacks on the two Iranian speedboats, and the bombing on Kesheev Island. As a result of that meeting, President Pezeshkian, who, there were rumors circulating, Pezeshkian's going to resign. He's upset for being cut out. That's all nonsense. It's just crap. Pezeshkian was directed to go talk to the Pakistani Prime Minister, Sharif, and deliver him a message. And the message he delivered. And so Pepe and I got this information last Thursday, and it was saying, Iran is going to withdraw from negotiations with the United States. Iran is going to withdraw from the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and Iran is then going to detonate a nuclear device as a demonstration. It's not going to attack anybody with it, but it is now going to demonstrate, okay, now we have a nuke. Now, that's not my claim. I'm reporting what the source said. After Pezeshkian told that to Sharif then turned around to his foreign minister and said, get a hold of Marco Rubio and tell Marco what the Iranians have said. And the Pakistani prime foreign minister did that. So Marco got that message I believe on Thursday. So they communicated that to Trump and to the rest of the national security team. And I think that the tendency was to say, that's just the Iranians blowing smoke. Well, then yesterday, today's Tuesday. I've done so many interviews. I've lost track of time. I did 10 different ones yesterday. It was crazy. So yesterday at 10 a.m. in the morning, right after I'd been on the judge's show, within like 30 minutes later, Iran comes out and says, we're withdrawing from the negotiations. So I'm looking at the list and going, okay, that's number one. Then that tracks. And so it was curious watching Trump's response. Normally, Trump would go on the attack and start calling people names and being really obnoxious. Trump, well, he may have been calling names, but the guy he's calling names at was Bibi Netanyahu, according to Axios. Because he yes, he got on the phone, and we've had three different versions. We got Donald Trump's version, basically, I had a nice chat with Bibi. We had a good conversation. We had Bibi's account, which basically is Donald Trump can't tell me what to do. I am independent. But then you had the Axios account, which said Trump was using foul language and yelling at Netanyahu and saying, nobody likes you, which actually is a pretty accurate statement. I'd say very few people like you. But the issue that Iran was laying down is the U.S. has got to stop attacking us. They've got to lift the blockade, and they've got to stop Israel from attacking the Lebanese people, particularly if they launch. And this is if Israel continues to attack Beirut or to go after the suburb of Dahia, which Ben-Gvir was talking about blowing it up, and Defense Minister Katz was talking about blowing it up. Then Iran was going to go to the final step of detonating that nuke. So, okay, we're in the nuclear ball game now, kids. So apparently Trump's conversation worked, sort of. It did back off Iran or Israel from attacking into Beirut. So far that's held. Nonetheless, the Iranians want the attacks in southern Lebanon and in Gaza to stop as well. That has not stopped. So that continues. And then as we're talking right now, there have been, the United States has again hit Kesheev Island. There's been an attack on Kesheev Island, and Iran, too many eyes. Iran has now responded immediately with missile strikes at the U.S. Air Base and the U.S. Army base in Kuwait.
Yep.
We don't know any issues about casualties yet. And now I double checked just before hopping on that they've closed airspace over Bahrain and Kuwait. There were some claims that there was explosions in Saudi Arabia and Qatar, but then they've come back and said, no, nothing going on here. So the point of all this is we're not close to any settled peace agreement. And it looks like the kinetic part of this war is starting back up. So, so much for Donald Trump's claim that we've got, we're close. We've got an agreement. Peace is at hand. John, if you haven't watched Jon Stewart's episode from yesterday, so he does like once a week on his Comedy Central. He put together a terrific montage, as only Stewart can, of every time that Trump has claimed that we're near to an agreement, and he's got the dates, and it goes back like 10 weeks. He's been doing this every week. Oh yeah, man, we're making progress. We're on the cusp of an agreement. That's April 10th, and then April 17th, same thing, and then April 24th, same thing, and then May 1st, same thing, and then May 8th. It's like, God, for God's sake, stop saying, yeah. Or as Stewart said, Donald Trump's claiming he's having trouble getting people to bridge differences. And Stewart says, I thought he was this great negotiator. Obviously, he doesn't understand what the term negotiator means, because negotiator is one who helps people bridge those differences. And Donald Trump, instead of bridging differences, he's blowing up bridges.
Yeah, I think his idea of negotiation means he gets what he wants.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that. Hey, let's talk about me some more. That's the Donald Trump approach.
Yeah, and I'll let everyone know. I interviewed Professor Morandi on Monday, and he told me right before the interview, he goes, "Hey, Sabrina," he said, "I think we're headed back to war." He told me Iran is done. They walked away from the peace negotiations. They said, they were fake negotiations,
right.
But Iran said no. They said, that's it, we're done. And I can show people what just happened in Kuwait. So this is coming around now on social media, ladies and gents. So just to let you know, Kuwait now.
Yeah, notice those aren't interceptions.
Yeah, so that the defense system did not stop those.
Right. Those explosions were the actual air defense munitions going off, but they didn't stop the inbound. So the inbound missiles hit.
Yeah. So that's, everybody needs to know, Kuwait, yeah, they're getting hit. And I want to bring this in because I saw this, Larry, you were on Power Shift. For those who are not aware, this is Pepe Escobar here in the black shirt to Larry's right. I just want to play the part where the host of the show explains who this gentleman in Pakistan was so that people understand this isn't just a random guy.
And the man on the left is Zulfikar Ali.
Zulfikar Ali, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I call him the Z-Man.
Yeah, I think I got an email from him about this show, but let me show you guys what he said.
Has limits. And today, Mohsen Rezai, the top military advisor to Mojtaba Khamenei, said, look, our patience has limits. That's exactly what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened today is the illustration that it has reached the limit already.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I would like to interject at this point is that he is not acting alone, the military advisor. He is, I mean, this is part of intelligence that I'm providing to you and that I'm providing to our audience who will listen to us and distinguish our show that way. He is being advised by somebody who he highly respects. He's the chief of Pakistani military forces. He's a field marshal. His name is Asim Munir. And he has a direct link.
Advised by Asim Munir, right?
Yeah, a direct link. He has a direct link to the supreme leader, and through his good graces to the head of IRGC and the political leadership.
So I wanted people to hear that, Larry, so that people don't think it was just a random guy in Pakistan who said this. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone running a shawarma stand. No, this is
right.
This is someone who we have, Pepe and I have some additional information that we weren't allowed to share, but based on what we know, the source is rock solid. It's not somebody who's just seeking attention or trying to get clicks on social media.
So if Iran now has access to a nuclear weapon, is this something that you believe they created, or did someone give it to them?
I asked that, and my initial assumption was that it was given to them by either Pakistan or North Korea, and that's still possible. But we were then told that Iran received assistance from another of their supporting countries. So they have it. Apparently, they have it. They are prepared to use it as a demonstration in order to say, "Look, we're no longer now." So everything that you've been saying and warning about, okay, we now have it. But the reason they have it is they were provoked into this. They've gone through repeated negotiations where they've been open and willing to make concessions. And every time, last June 13th, and then December 28th, with the launch of the Color Revolution, where the United States tried to collapse their economy. And then on February 28th, the surprise attack to decapitate the Iranian leadership. In response to that, Iran said, we now really have no choice. We have to defend ourselves.
So that would leave Russia or China, I think. Who else would be left to probably give that to them? I didn't realize Pakistan had a nuclear weapon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They've, one of the, let me be careful how I say this. The U.S. has been aware of Pakistan's nuclear program and nuclear arsenal, knowing where it's stored, where it's kept. And so, yeah, it's something that in the realm of U.S. military plans, it's an issue that has been addressed, at least from the planning standpoint.
So Pakistan has a nuclear weapon. Israel has a nuclear weapon, but they don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, but they continue to attack Iran. It's really insane at this point. Well, what about the Quran? What about, the belief that a nuclear weapon, it goes against what they believe? And I'm wondering, do you think it's a difference because the supreme leader, the new supreme leader, he's from a younger generation as compared to his father? I felt like his father was a little bit more, it seemed like he might have been a little bit more moderate, a little bit more willing to, well, let's hear them out and see how things go. Whereas his son is from a younger generation. And it seems like his son is like, no, we're not doing that. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. So the Shia position, and I think this is shared by many Sunnis as well, but the Shia in particular have been very firm about the major reason that they've not talked about. It's one thing to get a nuclear weapon; it's another thing to use it. And I think if Iran ever used it, they would not use it against a civilian center, because the principle within Islam is you don't kill non-combatants. Killing non-combatants is a sin. If anything, I think, put yourself in the position of Mujtaba Khamenei. On February 28th, he was there with his father, his mother, his wife, and his young daughter. And the United States attacked him and killed his wife, his daughter, his mother, his father. Any human being who, male or female, that witnessed that kind of violence against their families would naturally want to seek revenge against those who did that. They would at least get justice. You can't just come kill my family and then I walk away and ignore it. So I think that's one factor that's weighs heavily on Mujtaba. So now the question is, how much emotion guides his decision making, and how much of let's call it the Leonard Nimoy Spock mind dominates his thinking. The Spock version is you keep emotion out of it, and you try to deal with just the facts, the science, and ultimately his goal is not for his own personal benefit. He is the spiritual leader of the Iranian people, and to that end, he has that obligation. So I think what they're doing now is saying we are prepared we will use a nuclear weapon to defend ourselves, and so that changes the equation. In the past, Israel could basically threaten to use nukes against Iran, and they would have to deal with conventional response. Now, if they're calculating that, they have to calculate that Iran could respond to any Israeli attack in like manner. And so that is, and I think the Iranian thinking on this is that if we go out and stake this position, that it will maybe put a pause and maybe provide a way to go forward for a peaceful resolution ultimately. Because I think Iran is still interested in a peaceful outcome, but they're not going to be a punching bag. And
right.
Going back to that, that series of events that happened with the start with the National Security Council meeting and say, okay, we've got this ceasefire in place, but the United States is not honoring the ceasefire. It's the United States that's breaking the ceasefire, not Iran. And it's Israel that's breaking the ceasefire. And I pointed out that on yesterday at the United Nations Security Council, the Israeli ambassador, Danny Danon, was, complaining about Hezbollah's attacks, et cetera, and, how dastardly these were. And I would have just asked one question. How many Israeli civilians have been killed in the last 4 weeks by Hezbollah attacks? And I think the number is 0.
Right.
Or if it's the number, it's maybe 10. But we really haven't seen any reports of civilian casualties out of Israel. Turn the question around. How many Lebanese civilians and Palestinian civilians have been killed in the last 4 weeks? There we're talking thousands, not 10 or none, thousands. So who's the one that's doing the killing? It's not Iran, it's Israel.
It's true. They have been, you guys know how I feel about this. I don't think any country should have nuclear weapons, but some of them do. And if you're in Iran's position and you know that Israel is, to Larry's point, treating you like a punching bag, obviously you're going to defend yourself. And then, this whole so-called negotiation where Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, you cannot have enriched uranium, you can't do all of this, but you have a country near you that just attacks you out of nowhere because they want you gone or they want regime change. You're not safe. As much as Benjamin Netanyahu says that, Israel's not safe, we have to be protected. No, Iran's not safe. None of these other countries are actually safe, and they're talking about going after Turkey now. So I mean, it's very obvious, and during this time where Donald Trump has been playing this game, this back and forth negotiations, Israel has been seizing more and more land from Lebanon. Like they're carpet bombing Lebanon, and Western media isn't even talking about it, Larry.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. The Western media stands silent. I don't know about you, but when when I read the history of World War II and the history of the Holocaust, and when I was much younger, would wonder how could something like that take place and the world not stand up? Well, now as I've grown older, we saw it happen with the Houthis and the Tutsis, where the world largely stood by while a million of the other ethnic group were killed. And now here we've watched since in the aftermath of October 7th, we've watched the slaughter of the Palestinian people. And then it's been added to by the murder of Lebanese people. And we're not talking, it's one thing to take out a military target. The United States is always complaining about Iran, saying that Iran was behind the bombing of the Marine barracks. I believe that that's actually not the case. It was a mall, and a mall was supported by Hafez Assad. But the point was, it was still a military target that was attacked. Guys that carried weapons, guys that wore uniforms. That was not civilians. There weren't people sitting in a Sbarro pizzeria eating Italian food. It wasn't people on a bus going to work. What we've seen over the years, Hezbollah did attack some civilians back in the 1980s. But what we've seen, what Hezbollah has evolved into, particularly in the last 25 years, is they focus on military targets. They're not killing civilians. If they do, it's inadvertent, but they are focused primarily on taking out military installations, military vehicles, and gatherings and groupings of soldiers.
Yeah, and I'd be careful, guys, be careful with the Axios too, because they did this under the Biden administration where they told people that Biden and Netanyahu were fighting and arguing. And the guy who's writing this articles, he's already been outed by people like Max Blumenthal and others who have said, yeah, this guy is definitely like pro-Israel and he's basically operating on Israel's behalf. And I think his job, his name is David, Barack David, his job is to make you believe that there is this rift between the president of the United States and Benjamin Netanyahu so that you could think that the president or the leader of our country has some type of empathy and is hearing what you guys are saying. But that's not the case, as we found out after Biden's presidency, that Biden did not ask for a ceasefire at all, that Biden was not arguing back and forth with Benjamin Netanyahu. These are all, they want you to believe these things. And that's because Israel has lost a tremendous amount of support. But the reality is, like, if Israel's government, if Benjamin Netanyahu and all of them, if they're not stopped, like you see what they're doing to Lebanon, they're already talking about Turkey. They're already saying they want to go after Turkey because of the borders, right? So if you look at the borders, they want Turkey, and they also mentioned Egypt. I mean, it's a never-ending thing. So what is Iran supposed to do? Are they supposed to just sit there and just let Israel just blow them into oblivion?
Yeah, well, see, then that's Iran has negotiated in good faith. Go back and look at what I think it was the foreign minister from Oman, when he came to Washington on Thursday, February 26th, to brief the Trump and to brief his senior security officials on what had happened in the negotiations and why he felt optimistic. He was very upbeat. He said, hey, I think we've really got a chance here. And, little did he know the decision had already been taken that the United States and Israel were going to launch an attack on the 28th of February. It didn't matter what Iran agreed to. We were going to attack. We were going to kill the leadership in hopes, and the vain hope, that it would decapitate them and that there was this mass of people that would rise up and, quote, overthrow the government. It did, the exact opposite happened. It rallied the Iranian people around the government. So, but here's Iran. They've been negotiating in good faith. They're not the ones that walked away from JCPOA. That was Donald Trump.
I do still believe that if Iran would have agreed to the terms that Trump and Netanyahu wanted, I believe they still would attack Iran.
Oh no, I agree with you 100%. You know, you and I both understand this whole issue about Iran's nuclear capability. It's a red herring. It's an excuse. We're using that as an excuse to try to, rally, get the American people fired up against Iran. Did the same thing with Saddam Hussein, because, and I've sort of kicked myself because in 1990, I was sort of all on board. Yeah, we got to stop Saddam, because I didn't understand at the time, even though I had worked at CIA, we're in compartments. I didn't know that the CIA had been working closely with Saddam from 1980 until 1986, December. It was December 86 or January of 87. And the only reason that relationship between the CIA and Saddam was broken was because of Iran-Contra. The Iraqis got pissed off at us for, basically sleeping with the enemy. And so they right away said, no, we're not going to deal with the CIA anymore. They're untrustworthy. And that's where my friend, now deceased friend, Pat Lang, Walter Patrick Lang, an Army colonel who later went on to become the chief of the Middle East division at Defense Intelligence Agency, he was the one selected to hand carry intelligence to Iraq. So we continued to supply that intelligence to Iraq, but it was being done by the U.S. military, Pat Lang, and he was accompanied by Rick Francona, an Air Force lieutenant colonel. So again, we made Saddam into this monster, and really remember. In 2003, by God, or 2002, we got to stop Saddam. He's got weapons of mass destruction. And I wish I would have been making the argument back then. Yeah, he's got the damn weapons that we provided. The weapons of mass destruction that we provided those, not him. For God's sake, we're the ones that did that. And now we're trying to pretend he's the bad guy. Please, that's what I said. Yeah.
We used to work with all these people. We used to work. We had a relationship with Saddam Hussein. We had a relationship with bin Laden. And
Manuel Noriega.
There you go.
Muammar Gaddafi. I mean, at some point, Kissinger's remark is right. It's damn dangerous to be America's friend. You can have some problems if America's your enemy, but by God, if she's your friend, you better watch your back.
Yeah, and even the talk about nuclear weapon, it's like I said, we're not supposed to talk about the fact that Israel has nuclear weapons. We're not supposed to talk about that. But the big, outcry is the fact that, oh no, Iran could get a nuclear weapon. Even if, and this is something to think about, if Israel dropped a nuclear weapon on Iran, that's not just going to impact Iran.
Oh yeah, no, it'll have global effect. Now, I'm not arguing that this should happen. I'm just pointing out that the size difference between Iran, which is heavens, this has to be my last point. I forgot I have an 8 o'clock. Let me just tell the guy in a second. Yeah, where was I? I'm sorry, I got distracted here.
You said something about the guy. Oh, we were talking about the nuclear weapon, and you said...
Yeah, so the size difference, the impact, if nuclear weapons are used against Israel, because it's so much smaller, it'll be so much more devastating. Used against Iran, it'd be devastating in one area, but Iran's a huge country. And it's the 17th largest by land mass in the world. So it can absorb a lot more damage. I describe it as what happens if you get a sumo wrestler fighting against a midget or a leprechaun. Who can absorb more blows? The sumo wrestler. I'm sorry to have to bail out on you here.
I got you.
I don't mean to be rude, but I so appreciate the chance to be with you.
Thank you, Larry. I know you got another appointment. Thank you.
All right, Sabby. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, ladies and gents, that was Larry Johnson. Interesting developments that are happening again, like we said, in Iran. There's some crazy things that are going on, ladies and gents. But again, as I said, when I spoke to Professor Morandi yesterday, Monday, Professor Morandi made it very clear to me that Iran is tired. Like they're done. No more talking for them. They're not trying to talk anymore. And they're not playing around. If you haven't seen that interview, check that one out, because he also mentioned Ansar Allah could get involved here as well. So it's just, I mean, this is how we ended up in this situation. Again, the U.S. and Israel should have never striked Iran. So the theme, I forgot to tell you, tonight's theme is while you were sleeping. So while you were sleeping, apparently, yeah, more fighting has started in Kuwait. Again, those U.S. military bases. And then also, according to what Larry was telling you guys, that it appears Iran may actually have access to a nuclear weapon now. So I don't know, guys. We told you this would happen, that if this was not, if this didn't cease, that things would only escalate, and they should have never hit Iran in the first place, and we wouldn't even be in this situation. Meanwhile, the cost of living here is not getting better during all of this, right? Like, I don't know about you guys, but gas prices haven't gone down where I am. Food prices haven't, decreased where I am. And I don't know how long that's going to stick around, but economists have made it very clear that even if the Strait of Hormuz was reopened to everyone tomorrow, a lot of the damage has already been done. So something to think about. Let's get to some of the comments here, ladies and gents, and then we'll get to the other stories. We are going to do call in tonight after the show, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for the super chat, Michael. Sabby, union nurse and active in the resistance. All right, we got a union nurse. And thank you for this one. Minnesota union nurse, want to talk sometime. All right, send me an email. Email me. Thank you, Measured Man. Unless I'm reading wrong, I think the SS and the Nikki alleged scam with the fund created is to privatize Social Security so government can invest your Social Security in the stock market. In my opinion, it's a scam. That's interesting. I'll have to check that out. Thank you, Tuxedo. We all know who killed him. Thank you for this one as well. Jesus and JFK both taken out by the same people. Thank you, One Upped. Unions and co-ops are just basic survival gear. The ultimate goal is the whole cooperative commonwealth. Stop settling for crumbs. Take the bakery. Yum, 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 yum. Thank you, Marvin. Please have Ryan Dawson on, expert on the Epstein files. Someone else told me this too. I will have to look into this person. Thank you. Sheila, Sabby, are you going to have a show on the bill for Congress? They're secretly trying to pass align Israel to our military. I already covered that. So that video should be on my channel. I covered during the live stream on Sunday, but then I posted the video today. Shout out to Allah for being a member for 15 months. At this rate, Israel will not exist in 10 years. Mark my words, the whole world has turned against them. Evil never lasts forever. Thank you so much for that. Guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so, do me a solid and smash that like button for me. And if you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share just like a Care Bear. Let's go ahead and get that Rumble rant, and then we'll get to the next story. All right. Thank you for the Rumble rant scoop sign. When I worked at a restaurant and event space in Milwaukee, we had the heads of the Ballesteri crime family, as well as the P-Stones and the Gangster Disciples at our Democratic fundraiser. Wow. Yeah, things were wild back then. Wild back then. All right, ladies and gents, tonight's theme again is while you were sleeping, and check out this one. While you were sleeping, Jared Kushner is now under investigation. Jared Kushner, there are massive protests against him in Albania and, of course, against Ivanka because they are trying to, you guessed it, take more land. Let's get into it here. Albanian authorities probe seaside resort project linked to Jared Kushner. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, it's not just Jared Kushner trying to take part of Gaza and make a profit off of that. He is now ventured over towards a private island, or will be private for him, in Albania. So the same way Israel is stealing land, which Jared Kushner supports, Jared Kushner is taking land. Let's get into this a little bit more here. Albanian anti-corruption protesters are investigating a luxury resort project linked to Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. The project includes uninhabited Adriatic island of Sazan and several hundred hectares of the Narta projected landscape. I'm going to show you where that's located on the map. This is a sensitive coastal wetland area. It is home to flamingos, seals, and sea turtles nesting sites. So why do they need another private island? Why do they need another place for more luxury resorts? He already has the project going in Gaza. He wants to put luxury resorts there. Why do they need more land? And I think we all know what happens on those private islands, don't we? Don't we all know about that? Why? Hold on to that thought. I'm going to tell you my belief about that, why they're trying to do this. SPOC, Albania's Special Anti-Corruption Prosecution Office, confirmed on Monday that it had opened an investigation into controversial changes in the area's protected status and land ownership in 2024, which opened the door to tourism development. The prosecutor's office did not respond to a request for further comment by the time of this publication. Let's get into Jared's private equity firm here. This is what I've been warning people about private equity, right? Kushner, who heads private equity firm Affinity Partners, has a separate real estate portfolio estimated at billions of dollars. He also serves as Trump's special envoy for peace and is involved in diplomatic negotiations on Gaza, Iran, and the war in Ukraine. Critics have raised questions about the overlap between his business empire and political roles. I do want to reiterate here, Jared Kushner is not a government official. He's been traveling to these countries where Israel and the U.S. has started war as some type of negotiator. He is not a member of the federal government. I don't know what the rules are about that. But here we go again with private equity, right? In August of 2024, Kushner unveiled plans for Affinity Partners to turn the site into a luxury resort. In early 2026, he visited the area with his wife, Ivanka. And in a recent interview with Politico, Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama confirmed talks were ongoing between the government and Kushner over the deal, which is set to include 10,000 hotel rooms. So part of the problem is, even though the people are protesting against this project, the prime minister of Albania supports it. He's actually backing what Jared Kushner and Ivanka are trying to do. See how like leadership will go against what the own people in their country actually wants? So he's in on it. He's probably getting some type of payoff here too, by the way. Kushner and Affinity Partners did not immediately respond to a request for comment about the investigation. So let me show you what Ivanka Trump said, because it's not just Jared. She's a part of this too. And there was an interview recently where she was talking about this. Ivanka Trump announces that she and her husband, Jared Kushner, are building a massive off-the-grid private island in the middle of the Mediterranean. So listen to her yourself.
I'm working on an incredible project with my husband in the Mediterranean. It's massive in scale.
I think that's an understatement. Can you explain?
Yes, it is.
There's no power on this island. You're building everything from scratch. Correct.
Well, it's an unbelievable, beautiful 1,400 hectare private island in the middle of the Mediterranean. We were on a friend's boat and we stopped for a swim. effectively, that's how we found it. We swam to the islands. We went on a hike barefoot all the way up to the top, and we were just captivated. And it stayed with us ever since. And over the course of many years, we developed the opportunity to help realize its potential and transform it, but with a lot.
So they didn't realize the opportunity. They didn't develop the opportunity. They saw it and they wanted to take it. And why do they need all these private islands? Anybody start asking this question? Let me tell you what I think is going to happen, right? Because the rich never have enough. They're always greedy, and they always want more. I believe, you know how we've been talking about these data centers and what's happening with AI and how AI is even going to consume some of the white collar jobs? They already know what's coming. I believe the reason why they're trying to purchase land and they're trying to get more of these private islands is so that they have a place to flee to when shit hits the fan. When the real revolution comes, when the workers no longer have a place to work, when people are angry, when people are pissed off and they can't feed their family and people have had enough, and all of a sudden race and gender and none of these things matter, and people come together and rise up as workers, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to flee. People like Ivanka, Elon Musk, and all of them, they're going to run away because there's more of us than there are of them. And they will get on their private jets, which we will not be able to get on. They will flee to these private islands, which they continue to add to, their residents. They keep adding them, getting more and more, and they will be untouchable. We won't be able to get to them. It's the same thing with the bunkers that all these billionaires are building. Mark Zuckerberg has them. I'm willing to bet Trump probably has one too, because they know that when the real revolution comes, and that's the class revolution, when that happens, they know there's more of us than there are of them. And so they'll get on their jets and then they'll have multiple islands that they can go to, and they'll be untouchable. And we will all be left here to fight each other. They are planning ahead, because you don't need all these different luxury resorts and all these different islands. Like, these people are making sure that when we hit rock bottom, and we're not there yet, but when we hit rock bottom, because we are the declining empire now, they have a place that they can go to where they will be protected. Listen to what she says, the rest of it here.
A lot of restraint and care, because the land is so beautiful that really the architecture has to be fully integrated into it, almost rise from it. It's not even a business for me, despite the scale of it. We not only the island, but we have 5 miles of beachfront directly across from the island, this beautiful peninsula with a lagoon on one side, the ocean on the other.
Notice how they seem to be obsessed with beachfront. This is the same thing that Jared Kushner said about Gaza. Oh, look at the miles of beachfront opportunity that we could have in Gaza. They want to be on the coast. They want to be near the water, right? They see that as also prime real estate. She says she doesn't care about the business opportunity, but spare me the nonsense, Ivanka. You know you're going to try to make a buck. If you didn't care about the business, you wouldn't be building the hotels. Okay. If you didn't care about the business, you would just say, okay, we're going to get this private island and we're going to build a couple houses here for our family and for our friends. No, you're trying to find a way to also to make more money. So you do care about the business side of it. Okay. We have to do a deep dive also on her, because she's another one. Like, as much as there is a lot of focus on Jared Kushner, Ivanka is the next Donald Trump. She's the next, she'll be the female version of Donald Trump. She's next. You see, it's not always the people who are in the front. Sometimes you got to take a look at the people who are kind of in the back that you don't hear from as much. We see Jared Kushner more. We hear him speak more. But usually my mom used to always tell me, like, beware of the quiet ones. The quiet ones are the ones sometimes that you really got to watch out for, because they're sneaky. They're back there planning stuff and nobody's paying attention to them. because they're not in the spotlight all the time.
Beautiful white sand beaches. For me, it feels more like a challenge than anything else. The culmination of all of my experience in real estate, all of my travel, a lot of reflection on how I want to live, how I think people increasingly are wanting to live, and trying to really build something that's a tangible manifestation of that. That requires a lot of vision, the collaboration of some of the greatest masters that exist. So I was just there walking the lands, really just trying to sort of be with it and experience it alongside some of the greatest living architects of our time, like true masters of their craft, people with integrity so absolute, like there will be no compromise. And that's something we want to create there. So we're very excited.
Just taking more and more land, more and more land. So I want to show you what the Albanian people are saying, not the prime minister, because he's just, again, he gonna line his pockets in some way, shape, or form as well. So listen to what one of the activists is saying here. Albanians take to the streets to protest Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner's luxury resort. Listen to this here.
Tens of thousands of Albanians took to the streets to demonstrate against a new luxury resort linked to the Trump family. The $1.4 million luxury resort development is linked to Ivanka Trump, who is Donald Trump's daughter, and her husband, Jared Kushner. Their company, Zvernik South Adriatic Developments, is building a luxury resort on the Sanzan Island and the coast of Zvernik. Now, that will include thousands of beach villas, hotel rooms, and an international airport. The problem is that Pishe Poranara wetland is actually protected land, and 41 environmental organizations from 28 different countries have called for immediate halt of the project. The Prime Minister of Albania, Edi Rama, pulled a fast one to even allow this deal to go through in the first place. So what he did was just literally weeks before the project was supposed to commence, on April the 29th of this year, he introduced a new law which allowed a loophole for 5-star hotels to be able to be built on protected land, and he hid this from the public. Because of this legal loophole, the Trumps are now able to build their luxury resort on protected land and benefit at the disadvantage of the Albanian people. And the Albanian people are angry and they have taken to the streets. This is not the first time that we've heard of the Trumps wanting to develop on lands that is not theirs to have and build luxury resorts. Have we already forgotten what they want to do with Gaza? Anyway, I'll keep you updated on this story as we learn more, because I'll be interested to see if there can be a stop to this development on protected wetlands.
And of course, like, they don't care. They don't care that it's protected wetlands. They don't care that there are protected, there's certain animals there, and they need to be protected. They don't care. All they see is money. You know, people talk about crony capitalism, right? I just honestly think a lot of this just goes back to the billionaire class. Like, they have so much power and so many resources, and they just do whatever they want to do. And the reason why we haven't fought back against them is because they keep us divided. They keep us divided by political parties, although that might be changing. They keep us divided by race, by gender. And a big part of it is because we are divided by all those other things, we're not realizing that these people are getting away with murder. These people, the Epstein files was the big reveal of that these people have literally gotten away with murder. They've gotten away with torturing people. They've gotten away with kidnapping people. Like, and we just haven't come together collectively to fight back against them. And that's why. And there is more of us than there are of them. But as long as they can continue to keep us fighting each other, they know they got it in the bag. Now, I want to show you where that island is located. Let's go ahead and bring in the map here. So Albania is right here. Let me pull this over. Here's Albania. Here's Greece down to the bottom left, and Italy is right over here. But here's Albania, and let's zoom in so we can get to that island. It's a tiny little thing. Here we go. Boop. So there's Sazan Island. I'm just going to zoom in so you guys can see where it's at. It's right here. Boopity boop. That's the island that they are taking over. Right there. And again, right next to Greece too, you know. And again, it's protected wetlands. So that's the area that they want. But like I said, the people in Albania are not on board with this. They did rise up for protest. So it's very there. You have to zoom in even to see it because it's so tiny, but that's where it's located. I wanted to show you the people who are protesting, because we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people came out into the street because they don't want them to take that land. So you guys get the point. Yeah, I mean, they don't want this to happen. I mean, it says the project has received approval again from the Albanian government, but the people don't want it. So again, you got another situation where the government is going against the will of the people. And I have to tell you guys something as well. The fact that this is so close to Greece also makes me wonder. Greece's economy has not been doing well. Although they do have a lot of tourism, economically, their economy has not been doing well. And are they going to stop there? No, they'll continue to take more and more. And it's concerning. Now, he's under investigation. I don't know if anything will come of it, but the reality is, legally, I know at least in the United States, you can't just go build on protected wetlands. Like, even if you wanted to do that here, like, you would have to go before, like, the board. You would have to go before, if you're in a city, you would have to go before, like, city council, the mayor, like, and even then you're probably going to be told no. But they don't care. They do not care. These people, like, these are evil people. Do not look at them and think that they're good. They're not. Ivanka Trump, Jared Kushner, these are evil people. So it wasn't enough for Jared Kushner to build resorts in Gaza as they squish the Palestinian people into smaller and smaller space. That itself wasn't enough. Now you want to go take land from Albania. They're doing it here too. It's not just abroad. The same way you see them take land from the Palestinians in the Middle East, take land from people in Albania, the billionaire class, through private equity, has been continuing to take land from us right here in the United States. They've been doing this. It's gotten worse over the past couple of years. But we really need to, and I'm sending an alarm out now, we really need to pass some type of law, whether it's a ballot initiative, probably the easiest way to do it, that we need to make it so that private equity cannot do this anymore. I know that the Trump administration put forward something, but then when I read about that, there seemed to be a loophole. But they're trying to get all of us. They want all the land. They want all of it. It's not enough for them just to have one place. They want to have all of it. So Pay attention to what's happening, ladies and gents, because yeah, it's us versus the rich. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents. Eric, we can go to part 2. Thank you for the super sticker, Truth. Thank you. Thank you, Libertarian Social Democrat. That is an interesting title. Albania is an indigenous European Muslim nation. Interesting. Thank you, Sherelle. In addition to the U.S.-Israel military merger, just a reminder that the automatic draft registration begins December this year. They want to draft the youth and others, possibly before 2028. Ding, ding, ding. Thursday, we're going to do the deep dive into the decrease of teenagers in the United States, because I have something to show you about that, which is connected to this as well. Planet says Congress can remove him and Witkoff if they really wanted to. That's another thing. Thank you, Joe Dirt. What does Ivanka Trump mean when she says off grid? No spying like the government does everyone else? Yeah, probably. They're not going to have that. Like, they'll be able to do whatever they want on that island. And I think we know how that went last time. Think about that. World Adventure says Albania has been topping the list of countries that American expats are moving to. I don't want Israel mucking up our expat plans with their colonization. They already ruined it here. It's interesting. And thank you, Sherelle. The arsonists always vanish when the rich own the land. Well, points there. We have such smart viewers here. Such smart viewers. All right. Speaking of the rich, we got another, rich story that's coming up. Smash the like button if you haven't had a chance to do so, ladies and gents, and let's keep it moving and grooving. While you were sleeping, Sam Altman and Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, decided to move forward with a data center that the people are vehemently against. You can see the photo op here. Sam Altman and Governor Gretchen Whitmer breaking ground for the Saline TWP data center project. Now, the people were vehemently against this. And take a good look at this picture. Sam Altman is right here next to the guy in the gray suit. That's him. He's another rich billionaire who wants all these data centers and supports AI and is just like, screw the rest of you guys. And there's Gretchen Whitmer in the green pants. Now, this is the woman that Obama wanted to run for president in 2024. He didn't want Kamala. He wanted to do like open primary, but his picks was Gretchen Whitmer and Wes Moore of Maryland. So you see how the politicians working hand in hand with the billionaire class? Now, Gretchen Whitmer knew that the people in that community did not want this. But again, money talks. So here she is working alongside this asshole, Sam Altman. And a lot of people have been calling it out. This is Dr. Abdul El-Sayed. I believe he's a progressive Democrat candidate in Michigan. Sam Altman is in town declaring victory on a data center project that had to pass without public comment. We need terms of engagement at the federal level to keep big tech from rolling over state and local governments to shove projects down our throats without clear protections. And you'll see it here. He's talking about what Detroit News said, that Saline TWP data center will be a template for the future. Now, that's Sam Altman. Now, let me explain to you why this is a problem. Number one, you guys know we've been talking a lot about these data centers, but Sam Altman doesn't even live in the area. He doesn't live in Michigan. Why does he get to say what goes into their community? And now he's telling you that this is going to be a template for the future, which means he's going to be going to other places saying, yes, this is going to be the one. Look at all this land they took. I want to show you. Look at all that land. Let's think about what could have gone on that land, right? What else they could have built there, right? Homes, affordable housing, schools, other things they could have built there. But they're building another massive data center, which, by the way, does consume a lot of water, hand in hand with the governor of Michigan. This brings me to the AI concern, because see, if the data centers use a lot of water, which they do, despite what these billionaires will tell you, if they use a lot of water, and when we get to what Marco Rubio just announced here, and you know that AI is going to consume some of these jobs, even some of the white collar jobs, what are people going to do for a paycheck? How are people going to pay for groceries? How are people going to pay for their utility bill? How are they going to put gas in their car? How has anybody figured this out? Anybody? Because right now, what I'm seeing happen is that data centers and AI is prioritized over us. And this happened all over. This is going to be a global thing. They're prioritizing the robots and data centers over the people. Nobody has answered this question. What is going to be done to make sure that people can afford to pay for things? Even Marco Rubio doesn't know. You can see it for yourself.
AI will have very positive impacts on our economy and societies. It will also have some detriments. There will be white collar jobs in this country that will be impacted. And I think we have to start thinking not simply about the impact that AI will have on those jobs, but the societal pressures that will create, not just in the United States, but in economies all over the world. Much like industrialization and automation did, it will make the worker more efficient and more valuable, but it will eliminate some jobs, and those jobs will have to be replaced with new jobs or new skills. That's not just an economic issue, that is a political issue. That, over time, could destabilize societies all over the world.
Nobody knows. What are these new jobs that you're supposed to get while data centers continue to take up land in your communities and take your water? What are these new jobs that you're supposed to get? Anybody? He's not even given the right response to this. Instead of just saying, well, this is just how it's going to be, the right response would be, no, we are not going to allow AI to replace people's jobs. We're not going to allow AI to make people unemployed. We're not going to allow AI to become more important than human beings. That's the correct response. They don't have to do this. They're choosing to do it. And I'm telling you this because look at here. You know the World Cup is coming, right? Here's the dystopia you've all wanted so badly. Facial scanning security robots ready to patrol the AT&T Stadium for the World Cup. Look at this. Now, they think it's funny, but it's not. A couple years ago, I used to work at MIT. I saw some of this stuff at MIT back then before a lot of these things rolled out to the masses. They've been working on these types of like robots, and I saw the cheetah, the robot cheetah at MIT as well. They've been working on this type of stuff. Let me ask you a question. What happens if these little robot dogs, which also remind me of the episode of Black Mirror, what happens if they scan you and assume you're someone else? What happens if you have an identical twin? Technology isn't perfect, but also that's someone's job. If you've ever been to a sporting event or a concert, there's someone either outside at the gate or right at the entrance right at the entrance inside the building, that is going to scan. You have to walk through the metal detector. They're like, okay, let me see. You've got a purse. You got to put your purse on the table. And then they look through your bag to make sure you don't have anything in there that, you cannot bring into the event, the venue. That's someone's job. And it does not have to be this way. Now, I will say this. One thing that I agreed with Andrew Yang about when he ran for president in 2020, Andrew Yang warned us back in 2020 that AI was coming for these jobs. He said, we're going to have self-driving trucks. And back then, I remember people were laughing at him. They cut off his mic early. Now, Andrew Yang turned out to be a big Zionist. I interviewed him on the show before, and I was like, yikes, no. But he was right about AI taking these jobs. It's not even that far into the future, and we're already seeing it happen. This is what we're looking at now. And they're willing to put more money into a robot dog than they are into what we need as humans. But people are fighting back. This girl here, I've seen her all over social media. Her name is Ainsley Brown. My entire community showed up to stop the data center takeover happening in Coweta County. So check this out. People are fighting back, and some people are winning these fights against the data centers.
Hey, you guys, it's Ainsley from Coweta County. Today we are out here with rural Coweta. There are 4 signing spots. This is just one of them. This just goes to show you our community cares. They don't want the data centers. They don't want the eminent domain. We don't want to give up what makes rural Coweta rural.
Guys, this line is not dying down. This has been going on since 9 a.m. Like I said, this is 4 locations over Coweta County that people are turning out for, showing up to, and signing this petition to end the data centers. Come with me and let me just show you how long this line is. Some people have been waiting for 2.5 hours to sign this petition.
Coweta County, I believe, is in Georgia, if people are wondering where this is located.
It's not just me, it's my whole county.
So the line is really long.
We're gonna walk down the sidewalk here. It's a little bit congested, so the video may get cut off. I'm really not trying to show community members' faces. They are not consensual to this. They're just, nobody wants this data center in Coweta County. Nobody wants any of them. And the problem that I'm trying to stress to people is it starts with one data center. So you get one. And then after that, they're following the transmission lines, this Project Wansley, everything around it, and they're taking over the whole community. It starts with one data center, and it leads to them pumping out more and more and more eminent domain, taking people's homes so that way they can provide the power to these stations. It's insane. That's my whole point that I'm trying to stress, is it's not just one data center coming to Coweta County. We're working on number 10. We're working on number 10, trying to come in here. 4 are already approved. What do you think's going to happen?
Pause here for a second. She's talking about eminent domain. Eminent domain can be used for different reasons to take your home. This is something that is discussed in my documentary, Remove Black Erasure in Boston. One of the ways they were able to take homes from Black people in Roxbury in Boston was they used eminent domain. And see, this is a reminder that what they do, the government, what they do to Black people, they will eventually do to white people too in rural America. They start with us. They start with the indigenous people. They eventually make their way to the white folks in rural America. And rural America is prime because you have more land. Where she is in Georgia, this is not a dense area, right? So Boston is dense. New York City is dense. We don't have a lot of land that you can take, a lot of green space. Now, they may knock some buildings down and build something right in that spot. But for the most part, we don't have a lot of land. We just don't. But in rural America, they do. If you have lived, I lived in South Carolina, Georgia, I've lived down south. There's a lot more land there. And the data centers, they love rural America because they can make it as big as they want. They are now coming for rural America. And they've been looking down their noses at rural America for a long time. You see? And so I think now people are starting to see, whoa, they don't care about us either. No, they don't. They're looking at the class issue. If you ain't got no money, they're going to take what they can from you if they can, if they're allowed to do it. Watch a little bit more of this. I'm going to tell you how to fight back against this. But these are all the people who don't want the data center coming in Coweta County.
Already taken 330 people's properties with eminent domain. What happens when they need to power 10? That's the power 1. It's going to completely decimate this county, our property values, and everything that we have built our entire lives. And not just our lives, generational lives. Most of this is passed down from family to family. We've all lived here our entire lives, not just me.
Just gonna mute it here so I can talk over this. So she's walking now to show you how long the line is, right? So people can see that it's pretty long. And people are they're in the rain. So you see the umbrellas, like people are pissed. No more data centers.
Imagine this turnout for anything else. Anything else. This is a Saturday, you guys. People have spent 2.5 hours in this line on a Saturday afternoon. We have better things to do other than to come here and fight these data centers. 4 places in this county are holding the same thing. I'm late to this, you guys. It is 1:32 in the afternoon, and this has been happening since 9 o'clock this morning.
So, and she's young, she's young and she's out there organizing with people. She's out there, doing the activism thing. And this is what it's really going to take. Let me tell you, when it comes to these data centers, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you, well, you got to vote for it. No. The people who are winning the fight against the data centers, they're beating that fight by direct action. I've seen them. A number of places, people are like, they're not going to build it. It's going to take direct action, that type of organizing, what she's doing there. That's how you have to fight back against the data centers. You don't have time. You don't have time to sit and wait till November to vote for somebody. You don't. They are going to take over your community, which means the more data centers they build, the more water they are going to consume, which means less water for you. Let me show you another thing here, because I thought this was pretty interesting as well. They getting smart about this, right? Don't let them scare you. Don't let them intimidate you. They're trying to arrest this man. Cops arrest a man for organizing a protest against a data center. So look at this. This was in Illinois. So they're trying to scare you by trying to arrest people for organizing this. You have a right to protest in this country. Everyone has to remember their rights.
This right here came by because I'm trying to organize a community protest against a representative who's trying to push in a data center owned by a out-of-state company, trying to suck up all our energy. I made a post. I made an event on Facebook trying to organize the community to get together. And what's your badge number? Name and badge number?
I'm Detective Henson.
And name and badge number?
Sure. SHRP and it's 160.
Okay, yeah. No, I have a First Amendment right to protest, and if I organize a protest on a public road, there's nothing wrong with that. I sent an email to that representative, and I can show you the email. I never made a threat. I told him, no, this is my house, and I'm going to talk. You guys are on my property trying to intimidate me because I'm organizing a protest against a data center. Then why are you here?
Well, that's if you let me. Okay, so
let me just drop the beat for this guy because he obviously knows his rights.
Let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. Give him a name to remember. Hey, let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure.
A moment can live on forever. This man knows his rights. Let's keep going.
First off, do you want to talk about this?
Talk about what? There's nothing to talk about. I'm organizing a protest and I'm allowed to do that. It's a First Amendment protected activity.
110%.
Yeah.
The issue is some of the communication, the Facebook posts. I would disagree that there's.
I haven't made a single threat. Tell me what threat I made.
Okay, well, you know what you posted.
No, give me a quote me. Quote a threat, because I didn't make one. I'm organizing a protest on a public street, demanding a representative.
What about the safety of his children?
Huh?
What about the safety of his children?
Someone else made a comment about the safety of his children.
Did you?
No.
You didn't?
No, what I said if he valued his children's safety, he probably wouldn't be trying to ruin the world that they're being brought up on. And that isn't a threat. That's the fact that I'm watching this man ruin the world around here. And yes, I'm allowed to say that if someone cares about their kids, they shouldn't destroy the community that their kids are being raised in. That's not a threat.
The problem is you didn't say that in the post.
Yes, I did.
You did not.
Pull it up. Pull it up and read it.
Looked at it.
Pull it up and read it.
I've been dealing with this all afternoon.
Cool. Pull it up and read it.
Okay. So that's the concerning part is obviously, yes, you have the right to make an event, you have the right to public protest, everything else, right? But
I never made a threat.
Okay. Well, we disagree and our state's attorney disagrees. Okay, so you're going to be charged today for a couple of offenses.
Seriously? I'm going to get charged for what?
For stalking and intimidation.
For stalking? When did I ever go to his house?
So we'll explain that to you more. Okay, so you are going to be placed under arrest right now, okay? All right.
Okay,
so
let me
conclude your.
So this was Dixon, Illinois, right? So the police have gotten the marching orders from the federal government. I want to show you what I mean by that. They have already gotten together and decided that they are coming after these protesters. Let me show you. Ken Klippenstein just wrote about this recently. Congress CIA eyes AI data center critics. So again, they're doing this to try to scare you. Just FYI. So you can critique data centers. That is your right. That is your right in this country as an American. And they're trying to bully you guys. And it just pisses me off. So this part that he says here, a newly created intelligence agency of the Congress, yes, it has its own now, is warning that legislatures are in danger from an angry public. The U.S. Capitol Police Intelligence Services Bureau, created after January 6th and in parallel to 18-member executive branch intelligence community, laid out the warning in an internal intelligence report produced in April. IBS has prepared intelligence note to provide the U.S. Capitol Police and law enforcement personnel with information related to recent threats and attacks likely linked to grievances concerning data centers. So they're trying to basically see who these people are, who's organizing these protests against these data centers. Again, you have a right to do that, right? So it goes on to say here, there's only one problem. The report admits that there is no evidence of any actual threat to Congress. The U.S. Capitol Police is not investigating any data center motivated threats to members of Congress. So you see what they're trying to do? They're trying to make it seem as though, oh God, congressional members, they have to fear for their lives now because of this. And that is not the case at all. And what I thought is interesting about that, we'll actually go to what Ashley St. Clair said here. This is Elon Musk, baby mama. She was talking about this as well. Like, you guys got to hear what she says here about their plan. Remember, she was in with that whole group of people, Elon Musk and all of them.
This is not, if you think power was hard to take back in the last 50 years, we're done. Right. But now the FBI, I don't know if you just saw, they're targeting people who protest the data centers.
Right.
And so people need to get louder because if I seem neurotic, it's because I am, because what I saw, and I am very scared that once they accomplish this with this integration of AI into all of our lives, that it is going to be very hard to take that power back. This is not, if you think power was hard to take back in the last 50 years, we're done. So people need to fight back and fight back loudly. And the more I have been thinking about it, it's been more of a newer thought, but I truly believe they encourage so many people to have kids so that they're less likely to fight back. Because they know that is the only thing that will stop women from fighting back is their kids.
That's really interesting.
The child-free, I've come to a different understanding that they have more power than anybody else to fight back and to make that risk. And I think there was an essay, someone commented in my comments, the child-free are ungovernable, and people need to take that into account and fight. about. This is
And
not
fight back. So what she says here, I thought was pretty interesting, right? Again, Elon Musk baby mom, she was in that circle with Elon Musk, and she also has told some things about Stephen Miller. Like, she's been out there just spilling the tea. But one of the things that she says is that she believes the real reason why they want people to keep having all these kids is so that you're less likely to fight back. Because obviously, like, people are going to protect their children, you know, like most people, if they have kids, they're not going to put their kid at risk. If they were to protest or that types of things. It's interesting how things have changed, because back in the day, I do feel as though I've seen videos and photos of people taking their kids to protest, like whether it was the Vietnam War, Wall Street protests, etc. But I think people have become a lot more cautious nowadays. But that's what she's saying, that's why they want people to have more kids, because they think you'll be less likely to fight back. She's correct about the power dynamic. Like, the longer we wait, the worse it is going to get. But how did we get here? William Lawrence makes a good point. This is not democracy. This is oligarchy. How did we get here? Let's review. Again, Sam Altman, Gretchen Whitmer. Big tech funded Democrats and Republicans at the State House passed tax breaks for data centers in 2024. Both parties. 2, massive open AI and Oracle data center proposed in Saline, TWP, consuming more power than the city of Detroit, leading to 3, major opposition from Saline residents. Township board listens to residents and rejects proposal. 4, OpenAI and Oracle threaten to sue the township into oblivion, lacking resources to pay lawyers for an extended battle. The township folds, bringing us to today. 5, the governor smiles wide alongside OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. Who does she work for? Billionaires like him or the people of the state of Michigan? This sure doesn't look good. Well, I can answer your question, Lawrence. She works for the billionaire class. So I want to introduce another way, I think, to fight back against these data centers. I think we need a class action lawsuit. I think continuing the protests and the organizing, keep that going. But I honestly think, considering all those data centers that young girl said is in Georgia now, I think we need a massive class action lawsuit. And you know who I think people need to reach out to, and I'm sure she has her plate full, but I think people need to reach out to Aaron Brockovich for this type of thing. I think that's what needs to happen. If not Aaron Brockovich, someone who does that same type of law as her, where they go, you know, fight for these people that are having their communities like just torn apart because of these data centers. I know she was in East Palestine, Ohio, when the train derailed there and people got sick there. So I think we need a massive class action lawsuit. Because these people, the only thing these people understand is money. Let's go to some of the comments here, ladies and gents, or actually we'll come back to those because I'll let Eric come back to those. We got one more story and then we'll get into the call in. The call in. Okay. We got to end with something a little bit more humorous because those other stories were kind of on the heavy note. So let's go into something that has a little bit more. We're going to laugh a little bit, just a little bit, because this one's cracking me up. So video is forever. And Joy Reid has taken an interesting shift. I want to take you back to a news segment of Joy Reid when she was spoken to about specific groups. And I want you to hear what was said about these groups. And we're going to fast forward to what she's asking for now, because it contradicts what happened in this segment years ago when she smeared these groups. Phil Scott did an incredibly good breakdown of this. I have more I want to add to this, but this was the segment years ago. Listen to this.
Will vote for Democrats. And so now we have a whole campaign getting several campaigns, by the way. We have identified at least 5 existing campaigns that are focused on getting Black people to do only one thing, not vote for the Democrats.
And can you name one of those 5 campaigns? I mean, we put up from the report that you're saying that there's a conversation about reparations that has to do with it. There's a criminal justice conversation. Yes. There's an immigration. Go on.
Mm-hmm. Reparations, immigration, and
Now let's stop this. This was, I think, at least 6-7 years ago, and based off this report they had at the time. Okay, now we get to see what survived the Thanos snap. So ADOS clearly didn't survive. Blexit didn't survive. FBA tangibles is still going strong. Black Voice for Trump, that's gone. Walk away, that's gone. And
let me just pause here. Let me explain what this is all about. List of disinformation campaigns. So this was prior to the presidential election years ago. They put ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves. They said this is what they said on Joy Reid's show, which she went along with, that these were the disinformation campaigns. So pay close attention, guys, because now she's saying something different. So ADOS is an organization. I've interviewed Yvette Carnell on this show before. That's an organization. Blexit, yep, that is gone. He's right. Tangibles. FBA, Foundational Black Americans, which is a lineage, right? And they put that as disinformation. They put the word tangibles as disinformation. Guys, I kid you not. Like, this shit makes me laugh. So apparently you demanding something for your vote was considered disinformation, even though every group has demands for the people that they want to vote for. So this is what they were saying. Didn't I tell you guys, this is how they treat us? This is how they were treating Black voters. How dare you ask for something? And then they did it on the Black Woman show, and Joy Reid did not push back. So let's go on more here. List of issues targeting Black voters: reparations, criminal justice, climate change, immigration. You see how they talked about us? As if we were like a study. Like, we are not a science project. This was on MSNBC. So this is when Joy Reid was still a part of MSNBC. They talk about us like we're a science project. It's laughable. Imagine if it was another group. Imagine if it was another group. Do you think they would have ever put on MSNBC disinformation because Jewish Americans were asking for something for Israel? Do you think they would have put that as disinformation? Hell no. Let's go on. Let me fast forward a little bit here because I want to get back to that segment there. There we go.
Around being a cop is important is because anything that hinges on criminal justice becomes a divisive issue and is being used as a weapon right now. Are there real issues? Absolutely. I want to make sure that people don't dismiss the fact that there are some real issues that we're talking about. I think you had Cory Booker on here talking about police brutality. These are key important issues to our community. We know that this is the case because in the previous election in 2016, Black Lives Matter was targeted because of their campaign that was focused on police brutality.
Right.
It's still existing. It's still happening right now. It's just that we're not seeing a way to handle this and do a counter narrative.
Very quickly, we're out of time, but how can people?
So you see, they didn't want you to really get into the criminal justice. They didn't really want you. So they had a Black woman go into a Black woman show and say, basically, you guys are not following the script. So we're going to go let everybody know that you're disinformation and that they should not pay attention to you, or they should attack you. And we'll get to that part as well.
Tell the difference between the real genuine thing of Black Lives Matter and the ones that are just designed to make you not vote. How do you even tell?
So you can tell right away by the language that they use most of the time. But if you see anyone who says basically tangibles or you're not getting our vote without us getting something back, you should start to pause and take a better look at what they're the language that they use most of the time. But if you see anyone who says basically tangibles or you're not getting our vote without us getting something back, you should start to pause and take a better look at what they're saying.
Do you see the type of mess that was spread? Now do you see why the black vote for the Democratic Party has continued to decline over the years? It's not increasing, it's decreasing. I warned people about this in 2024, and they were just like, you don't know what you're talking about. Roland Martin told me I was uneducated and stupid, and I was a YouTuber. Never said I wasn't a YouTuber. That was the funny part. But that motherfucker on YouTube too. That was what's weird to me. But under Kamala, the black vote continued to decrease. Hasn't been the same since Obama's presidency, has gone down, continued to decrease since then. And the data shows that. But if you said the word tangibles, that you were considered a disinformation campaign, and Joy Reid went along with it. But they didn't say this about any other group of people, just us. Listen to what she's saying now, though. This is where the flip comes in. Let's fast forward a little bit here. Because like I said, Phil Scott did a really good job of this. Let me come in right about there.
What you got, sis?
Apparently, reparations are something that MAGA is in favor of. And now that we know, I think that it's really important for us to act on the information that we have received. Now that we know that a president can, without Congress, without going back to Congress, because who knew? You know, there's a fund that Congress has pre-appropriated, as you will know as a former congressional staffer, that's...
Pause. So Joy actually tells on herself here, and she also exposes Angela Rye. That's Angela Rye right up there. For those who forget, Angela Rye got into it on The Breakfast Club with Jill Stein and Butch Ware when they appeared on there for their 2024 presidential election. And Butch Ware and Jill Stein basically let Angela Rye have it because she was just basically like, what you're asking for is a pipe dream and da-da-da-da. But now she on here on the show agreeing with Joy Reid about the same thing that Butch Ware was advocating for. Now all of a sudden it's not a pipe dream. And I'm going to get into the reason why. But let me show you how she just exposed her. She said, now we know that there is this amount of money. There's this fund that Congress has and they can use and allocate it. Okay. She then proceeds to tell you that Angela Rye knows this because she was a staffer on the Hill. See, some people forget this. Angela was up there with the bougies and rubbing the elbows with the black boule on the Hill. And she still be protecting them. So if nobody knew about it, Joy, how did Angela know about it? Angela knew. You didn't know, but Angela knew. Did I tell you? So yes, Congress does have money that they can distribute to said group. This is how they were able to, during the pandemic, remember they were able to say, okay, we're going to give out this amount of money. We're going to do this, that American Rescue Plan, which actually didn't go far enough. And they cut that child tax credit and all that kind of stuff. Remember that passed through Congress? Guys, that's what I was trying to tell you. The money is there. The money been there. I call it a rainy day fund. But Angela knew. Let's go on. Because listen to Joy now. It's a whole different story now.
Sits there in case there are settlements that the government needs to make, so they don't have to keep going back to Congress every time. Donald Trump has now tasked his Justice Department to dip into that settlement fund to the tune of, and you gave me this information, $1,776 in order to give reparations to the insurrectionists. Well, now that we know, sis, the next time there's a Democratic president, I don't want to hear anything about them not being able to do reparations. I don't want to hear it anymore. Okay, so now that we understand the uses of power, we get to apply to that too. So the next time there's a Democratic president, we don't want to have a commission. We don't want to have Congress do a study. We don't want anyone to do a study. You are going to start issuing reparations to the descendants of African, formerly enslaved African people, to the Tulsa survivors' families, to the families of the survivors of every massacre that has taken place with the government of the United States either standing aside or participating. Because now we know that we can do reparations. So
no, Joy, Angela knew that. I knew that. Angela Ben knew. But she was trying to protect Kamala Harris, who was her friend, not just someone she was supporting, who was also a friend of hers, she said. She said that on the Breakfast Club to Jill Stein and Butch Ware. But what's happening, Joy? Because when those same groups that you were saying was disinformation, they said that. They tried to tell you that back then. They were disinformation. They wrote whole articles about them saying that they were Russian bots and all this shit. I don't know if everybody remembered this, but I remember it. They went after those groups, targeted them, okay? But now you're saying the same thing that they were saying then. So now because you're saying it, now it's not disinformation. And here's the problem that I have with this. I don't have a problem with people changing their mind on said issue. What I take issue with is the fact that she never apologized for the way that she smeared those groups. Till this day, Joy Reid never issued an apology to ADOS. She never issued an apology to FBA. She never issued an apology to those same groups that were demanding reparations. And now here she is over here with us, the little folk on the YouTube side of things. And now she see what it's really like to be over here now that she's not a part of MSNBC anymore. And people are still asking and demanding for something for their vote. And their girl Kamala lost, because if Kamala would have won, this would not be a conversation. So because Kamala lost and they don't want to say this, but they saw she did not win the black vote the way the people before her did. She saw the lowest amount of percentage of the black vote when you compare her to the predecessors that came before her in the Democratic Party. It continued to decline since Obama. So where's the apology, Joy Reid? Why don't you issue a statement apologizing to those groups? And why don't you say, I spoke about this and I was wrong? Why aren't you doing that? And it's not about whether or not you believe in what those groups are fighting for or what they believe. That's beside the point. The point is, you are now saying the same thing that you discredited them for saying, and you never apologized. Angela Rye, same thing. Angela Rye was saying they were Russian bots. I'm trying to tell you guys, go back and look it up. Never apologized till this day. This isn't just a black issue. This is a class issue. Joy Reid and Angela Rye, these are people who are part of the Black Boule. Most of us are not a part of that. And they have this whole concept as to like, if it don't come from them, then it's not relevant, or it's disinformation, or it's not legit, or it's not credible. Yes, there's classism in the black community as well. So this whole thing about it has to come from them. Now, Angela out here now looking some kind of way because now even Kamala Harris is out there telling people you should get something for your vote. Duh. That's what everybody else was doing. Didn't Trump supporters have demands? Or am I living in a fantasy world? I remember them demanding things. You may not have agreed with what their demands were, but they had them. So let's get to the part here that Phil Scott gets to, because I think it's wild to me, man. It's absolutely wild to me. But I think he makes a good point here.
Joy, to me, you step foot into this landscape now. See, now you're down here with all the rest of the black people. See, before you was up there with the white folks in MSNBC, So you wasn't really dealing with reality. So now you came down here with the rest of us in the Chitlin circuit, and then you have your own platform. And you see, it's not as easy to be on these platforms because you're dealing with the people every day, and you're dealing with the people in real time. Network TV kept you insulated. So for me to hear you start speaking in that manner lets me know one thing, is that you saw, in which a lot of these, listen, I'm telling y'all, a lot of these Democrat shills is going to have to change their language. Not because they want to, not because they believe in it, because if they don't change their language, they can't get none of you to even think about voting Democrat. If they keep pushing coalition politics, that's going to be like, oh, that's a hell no. I ain't trying to fool with coalition politics. But now they're going to be speaking about reparations and, getting something for your vote like Kamala did. Oh, all of a sudden they can say that, but we were saying that before. The same Democrats was attacking us, talking about shut up. You're just getting in the way. All the different things that they would say to us.
Calling us stupid, calling us uneducated. Yeah, this was black people, black boule people that were attacking the rest of us in independent media. And they were calling us stupid, uneducated. You're just a YouTuber. I remember saying I was all these other things. Like, that was the weirdest thing. Like, to me, and I'm like, yeah, this is class, because they're part of the boule and they're in that bubble and they want to maintain that and they want to continue to be a part of that. Now you hear them, and Roland Martin too, now you hear them saying the same things that Phil had been saying for years, that I said like years ago, especially 2024 presidential election. Now they're admitting that the Democratic Party is losing the black votes. But see, it has to come from them. They have to say it. When we say it, we're nothing. We're uneducated. We're not in with the club. I didn't go to Howard. Sorry. I went to a school that I could afford to go to. I'm sorry. My bad. We're not in the club. And people join that club early on. A lot of times it starts before college, and this is how they look down on you. You ain't nothing. They feel like you ain't nothing. Phil Scott started a whole damn business. I may not even agree with Phil Scott on some things that he talks about. I don't agree with him on everything, but they were acting like Phil Scott wasn't even a businessman. They were like, oh, just get out of here. Who are you? What do you know?
Disinformation. That's what made me even go to members only back then on the chat, at least on my chat, was that they was literally spamming our live chat. So I'm like, you know what? You can do it if you want to, but you're going to be a member to do it. You'll be a member to do it.
They had people go out and target us, guys. Like, they was doing this. They had people come into the chats and try to, like, to his point, try to spam the chats and stuff like that, all because we wouldn't get in line. And how dare we ask for anything?
That way you can put some seed in good ground in the middle of your trolling. Okay? But Joy Reid now wants to advocate for reparations. That's what she wants to advocate for. And she's talking about cash payment reparations. It's amazing how, I guess you don't work for the folks, that now all of a sudden you can speak for the people. Now, let me cue this back up. Let me cue this back up. Yeah, you say this. No, the shields are not learning. They're learning to like, y'all, like, I don't like this term, but I'll use it today. They're learning to I guess, grift, hustle, whatever. Okay. Because if you truly believed in reparations, they would have said it a long time ago. You don't just wake up. Now, I know people have a right to change their mind, but come on. Joy didn't. When you change your mind, you usually come out and say, you know what? I used to think this way, but now I've been more educated on some things. I've seen some things, and I've definitely changed my position from saying that, people that want reparations are tangibles. I was saying disinformation, Russian bots. I was wrong on that. I should have never said that crap on that show.
Right.
And, I get it. Black people do need reparations. Yes, they do. And because it's wrong with not only with this administration, but what America has done to black people. Now, if you come up with that kind of messaging and you've been saying that repeatedly, and people say, okay, well, man, Joy see the error in her ways. So then when Joy starts talking about reparations, now then you could be like, okay, it seems genuine because Joy was admitting what she did was wrong. She's being apologetic. She's understanding her error of her ways. Then when she could speak about reparations, we could say, okay, cool, it's coming from a genuine place because she, basically prostrated herself before the community about the error of her ways. And how black people are, I just know my people. They're like, okay, well, Joy doing all this, and she's being apologetic. Okay, Joy, as long as you don't mess up again, then we'll be halfway cool with you. I just know my community. That's how we are. We don't immediately just throw you away. Now, if black people throwing you away because they gave you an ample chance to get it right, and you just didn't. So Joy for me, and then Angela Rye, she's another one that was up there talking about HR 40 and all that. Angela, you wasn't a proponent of reparations either, sister.
Nope.
No. All of you was just say, deliver the black vote to the Democrat Party and stop asking for something. Not right now, later. Not right now, later. We have this threat on us and we ain't got time for that right now. Y'all gonna mess it up. Like, we got to get the Democrats in office and then we can talk about that later. Remember that's what Joe Biden said?
Angela Rye was a big one on that. Guys, don't talk about this. She said the same thing with the pro-Palestinian protesters. Like, let's just get Kamala in and then ask. And you mean the same way that it was let's just get Biden in, and Joe Biden sat up there and he had that meeting with those civil rights leaders and he told them now is not the time? You ever hear him tell the Israelis or Jewish Americans that now is not the time? You don't hear either side say that. I remember this. They said, just get them in. And so people learn from that. And people now say, no, demands first. Then I'll think about it. I consider it. But I'm not just going to jump and do it, hoping that you're going to do the right thing. We learned from the past. I learned from Obama. I made that mistake. Whoops. So Angela was one of the big ones doing that. And now it's like, now they scared because I think now they really see it like, whoa, black voters are becoming more and more disengaged. I wonder why. And it's not just us. But I wonder why. So it's just Angela worked there. She knew things. And I think that's why she got so mad when she clashed with Butch and Jill during that Breakfast Club interview, because Butch knew that she knew these things. And Butch went off, and the things that Butch was saying, those are the things she should have been saying. Not just, she's my friend and I know her. It's wild. We're going a little bit more here, then I'll take it to the other part.
You even told Ice Cube that, well, let me get in the office and we'll talk about it later. Then when it's time to go talk to Joe Biden, he didn't want to talk to Black Lives Matter. He didn't want to talk to Ice Cube. He talking about he was too busy. He had stuff to do, things the pandemic he had to do. Then they put Kamala up there to go talk to him in the panel. He's like, no, I want to talk to y'all one-on-one, not a panel. Didn't even respect the man to even give him a one-on-one.
Biden basically said, I do not have time for these Negroes. I do not have time for you. I'm just here because we didn't want to get Trump in there. So this is the best you're going to get. I want to get to this part here where he talks about, again, how Angela knew.
Angela, question for you. Why didn't you tell black people this for years? That, hey, you know what? We and you're a lawyer too, Angela. Why didn't you say, you know what? We can go get our reparations that way. So, Angela, you knew the government had money sitting there that could have been our reparations. You a lawyer. And you mean to tell me you couldn't get with other lawyers and tell the community about this money that's sitting to the side that could be paid out? You didn't say nothing. You knew about it. You're promoting HR 40 in the study, yet the cash payment was right there the whole time and you knew.
Phil looks pissed right there, but let me tell you something about that. You know why she didn't tell the rest of us? Because we not in the club. This is sad to say, but when I talk about the class issue that's also in the Black community, it's like when I talk about like the Black Boule, there are times where they will have information that they are privy to, but they will keep it to themselves. They won't pass it on to the rest of the community because we're not in that bubble. We're not of the same class as them. And it brings me to that question about Black excellence, which I've talked to my comrade JB Fawn about this before. We did a show about this one time a couple years ago about Black excellence and the myth that it is, because Black excellence benefits the individual. Black excellence doesn't benefit the entire community, because oftentimes when you point to someone and you say that person represents Black excellence, oftentimes they pulled up the ladder behind them. They're not extending that ladder to the rest of the people in the community, oftentimes. So I think what upsets me sometimes is when I look at other groups, a lot of times they're not doing that. Don't get me wrong, you still got some selfish people everywhere. But living in the Boston area, I see this. I'll see how like other groups will work together. And it's just like they all will like stick together. Let's bring everybody along the way. Let's get all of this. You know what I mean? Like we're going to work together and get these institutions or build these institutions so that it benefits all of us. And let's just move everybody together. Maybe not as much today because I think people getting more and more selfish because of the economy. But the Black Boule has been known for years to get information and keep it among themselves. And the information that they do share is like they never put out a blueprint to show you how to get to where they got. They don't want too many of you up there. They don't want too many of you. And people like Angela and Joy and Roland, that was all in those Democrat circles where, I mean, they're rubbing elbows with the senators and House representatives and presidents and presidential candidates. And, you know, I am not of that ilk. And sometimes when you get into those types of circles, it can cause you to look down on other people, even if they look just like you. You didn't go to Howard. You weren't an AKA. You weren't a da-da-da. And that's the sad and unfortunate part about it. But the part that he said there was that she knew that all that time, and she never relayed that information back to the community, tells you everything you need to know. She never wanted you to ask for any tangibles. She never want, none of them, neither one of them. They did not want you to press these politicians. They wanted you to just vote. That's all they wanted while they expand and extend their careers in DC. And the longer you've been around this and you watch the way that people move, you'll see it yourself. Why would you keep that information to yourself? And honestly, I mean, Joy Reid kind of called her out because she said, you know, Angela, you were there. She never shared that information. Instead, she joined along. Angela and Joy, they joined along with it in smearing Black people who were demanding what they are demanding now, and they never apologized. That tells you everything you need to know. Quick to call people uneducated, too loud, not polished, that type of thing. Well, when people are ignored, it gets to that point. When people have tried to do it the right way and you ignore them, eventually it gets to the point where people are going to get loud. And honestly, there's nothing you can do about it. But I was laughing my ass off when I saw that video, and I was like, I know Joy Reid isn't saying this, considering how she smeared everybody else who was saying the same thing. So my message to Joy and Angela is that you owe them an apology. And honestly, nowadays, I don't know how you're going to try to fight for that or demand for that without them because they put in the groundwork. Crazy stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do call in. I'm going to take 5 and Eric's going to come on during the break and I'll be back.
So there was a guy in chat, you know what he asked? He asked, what? Who's calling? Who's this guy calling? So there you go. I'll tell him about it while you go on break.
That's funny. All right. I'll be back, guys.
All right. This is where we're going to give our Sabrina a little break while we kind of do the transition over to the Zoom Hangout kind of call-in part of the show. So there used to be an app called Call-In, and it was kind of like a radio show style call-in thing where people could call in and give their comments and have a discussion with the host. And it was a good app. And then Rumble and Peter Thiel, whoever owns Rumble, they bought it, and they were going to turn it into their own version of Call-In, which they never really did, and they killed the app, and so it's gone. There you go, billionaires in action, right? But we still do the call-in. So the way we do it now is through Zoom. We call it our Zoom call-in hangout, and we'll give you the link to that shortly. Sabrina's actually creating the call-in room while she's taking her bit of a break now. Meanwhile, yes, we'll be giving you that link, and you can just come in and listen. You can come in and join the speaking queue and tell us what you think, whether you want about the stories we talked about tonight. We got Iran, Jared Kushner, Joy Reid, data centers, Mafia unions. We got all kinds of good stuff. So that's where we get to hear from you. So I look forward to that. So we'll be transitioning over to that shortly. But in the meantime, I did want to show you a new thing we got going called Ask 11 Demands. So there's a spot on the 11 Demands website. Here, let me bring that up here. So if you go to 11demands.org, where are we on here? Here we are. And it's, sorry, just got to get on the right screen here. Here we go. 11 Demands. And then there's a spot on here right near the top of the page. If you have a question about 11 Demands or MCDS, you can hit enter it here and enter your question, and we'll if it's a good question, we'll answer it here on this part of the show. So please do give us questions if you got them, or you can just come into the Zoom Hangout and ask us there. But we did have one come in here recently. So we have this Ask 11 Demands question from Tracy, who asks about billionaires, about a question about the billionaires. And they say, well, why is the money from Trump's Gaza border peace resting in JP Morgan account? So I would say from an 11 Demands point of view, that gets into how everything is, as far as our government goes, done in the interest of the billionaires. So it's of course on brand for Trump to be doing that. He's going to, everything's about profit, and even not just about profit, but about enriching the wealth and resources of the billionaires and their power. One thing to notice, is while we're all struggling, the billionaire class is literally richer than ever and continuing to get richer than ever. So just the other thing I would connect that to is if you, under 11 Demands, there's under articles, there's one called Two Sets of Interests. That really, I think, is an important one to remember in all this stuff. There are in the system how the economy, the society, and of course our government works. There are two sets of interests, and we have this chart that's kind of like looking at how things work in the society, medieval days versus today. And at the top you got the billionaires, and at the bottom you've got all of us. So this article gets into that, how that works. The two sets of interest, top 0.1% and the 99%. So I would encourage everyone to keep that kind of framing in mind when you're looking at any of this stuff and how it operates, how decisions get made. There's those two sets of interests. The the billionaires and the rest of us. And if you frame it in terms of that, and then go from there, then you got to get into demands, right? Having clear demands. And one other thing I would just say about this is that the only way that this whole thing and this mess gets fixed is if we decorrupt our government. We have a government that's totally corrupt, working for the billionaires, for billionaire interests. If you take any one of these issues from tonight or any of our shows, I would submit the only real way that we're going to fix them is to decorrupt our government. We need a government that works for us and not the billionaires. And that's the fight. That's what 11 Demands is all about. And if that makes sense to you, check out 11demands.org. Let's see what we can do to organize around those specific demands. But I think it's really important to just have that core framing and understand where the real fight is. All right, a few super chats in the queue. Actually, first, I'm going to see what we got out here on the Rumbles. Because we also broadcast on Rumble. Thanks for, we got a few these Rumble rants, which are the paid chats out on Rumble. Thanks for this one from a Stoop Sign, who says, my jobs counselor wants me to get the job to train the AI that's going to take people's jobs. I hear you. AI, it's certainly worth talking about, and it's something that we have to deal with. I would tend to frame it that it's a tool that doesn't have to be totally for the billionaires and for their interests. It could do things for the 99%, but again, it's not going to happen until we decorrupt our government. All roads, lead back to that. They used to say all roads lead to Rome, but I would say all roads lead to a decorrupted government. Thanks also for this one, Stoop Sign, who said he attacked a food delivery robot in Madison, Wisconsin in 2022, fought it to a draw before it let out a distress signal, loud ass shriek alarm. All right, that sounds like quite an adventure. And thanks for this one, this Rumble rant from Mark, who says, Sabby, I have a theory that we are being ruled by real-life Bond villains. They always have an island like Dr. No. I mean, it's important to view that billionaire class as villains, as our enemy, and that doesn't mean like that. It's not about physical harm. It's about defunding the billionaires. Is really the fight that we have to get in there and deal with. And it's important to have that kind of clarity. Oh, I see another one here in the Rumble rants. Let me get that one out here. All right, let's see whose name this is. Here we go. All right, thanks for this Rumble rant from Deep Green VO, who says, where was this Joy on Legacy? Switch up Joy, LOL. This feels like she's trying to get her cred back. There you go, right?
Yeah, they're trying to get those votes back.
and she's trying to get viewership back and get some relevance back. All right. I've been yakking too much. I haven't gotten to any of the super chats, but I did do the Rumbles.
All right. Thank you, Flower Bro. Altman's compound in San Francisco got hit twice in a row by separate attacks, which I'm sure we all condemn. On an unrelated note, the day after the second attack, Altman publicly advocated UBI. Yeah, they know what's coming. Thank you, Nat the Cat. The Seminole Nation banned data centers. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Thank you. Where's the love? This is why folks shouldn't listen to onion heads like Joyless Reid. They stink, onion heads. Thank you for this one. Joy needs to stop. She's not eligible for a reparations check, girl. Bye. Thank you, Davu. And what's wild, other groups made demands. Democrats met some of those demands and they didn't even vote. But Black voters get told that if we don't vote, then don't say anything at the same time. Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. Okay. What Democracy said, Joy Reid shall never live this down. Yeah, man. I think she just needs to issue an apology. We are going to head into call in, ladies and gentlemen. So the link to call in is pinned at the top of the chat. You should be able to see it there. And then I am going to open the call in room while I'm on the stream. So you guys make sure you guys can get into the call-in room. The way this works, if you want to speak on, I call it call-in, it's just Zoom, but if you want to speak, at the bottom, there is an option to raise your hand. So you just click on that icon and that lets me know that to call on you because you want to speak. You can also get that Zoom link at sabbysabs2.com as well. Eric, I'll go ahead and make you a co-host.
And we can go hang out with that guy Colin.
That is funny. I still call it that, even though we're not using the app anymore because the app went kaput. So, but I still call it that. So
It works. All right, Colin and I will see you in there.
All right, ladies and gents. Okie dokie. Let's go ahead and head on over to call-in. Thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gents. Have a good night and keep up the fight.